What is up, everybody, and welcome into the Blogger Bowl Week 11 preview. It just dawned on me while that intro was going, Matt, that the Week 11 games are being played on 11/11.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mind.
Well, that was kind of weird that we both did that. Not only both did that, but the exact same time.
Yeah. That was not planned, but it worked out anyway. And I was just thinking about that because it's like, wow, we got to Week 11 of the college football season, and we have no idea just how dominant Michigan football is. We know they're good. We know they're very good. They might be the best team in the country. We have no idea because through some fault of their own, their non-conference scheduling, and through some fault out of their control, how ass the Big Ten is in general outside of Michigan, Ohio State, and the team they're playing this weekend, they haven't really played anybody. We're going to find out, but there's a giant cloud hanging over their head before we even get to this game. I didn't really want to have to do any of this Jim Harbaugh Big Ten stuff, but On3 was the first news outlet that put this out there, that there's an expectation that at some point today, Jim Harbaugh is going to be suspended 3 games by the Big Ten. I've talked to some people in the know, and what I was told was that the Big Ten was planning an indefinite suspension. And I think my read on it was they got spooked by the letter that Michigan and Tom Mars sent to the Big Ten. So now it's looking like a 3-game suspension, which was what I was told before this On3 report came out. I'd imagine Michigan is going to appeal this, find they're going to have to reach out to a judge on Veterans Day weekend to grant them an injunction. So if you're wondering why it's taking the Big Ten so long, why they're dragging their feet on this, that's probably why.
They must really not want him on the sidelines.
They must really not want him on the sidelines. When I'll just launch into it because I didn't think I was going to come to Michigan's defense here. Jim Harbaugh's getting screwed. I think he is really getting screwed here. I've also been told they don't have any evidence to directly implicate Jim Harbaugh. Like, you don't.
Can I stop you right there? Because
Sure.
I keep saying that, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I hate we don't have evidence that show, and I know I'm going to come off as a Michigan hater. I don't really care. I hate we don't have evidence that Jim Harbaugh knew anything. It does not matter what Jim Harbaugh did or didn't know. It was one of his assistants on his staff coordinated a cheating, broke the rules to cheat and give his team an on-field advantage, and it happened underneath his nose. Obviously, what went on at Michigan is nowhere near a percentage of what was worse than what happened at Northwestern. But Pat Fitzgerald, Northwestern, had an independent investigation say Pat Fitzgerald didn't know what was going on in the locker room, and Pat Fitzgerald got fired for it. So I cannot. It blows my mind when people keep saying, well, it happened, but he didn't know. That doesn't matter. The NCAA bylaws say it doesn't matter, but everybody keeps wanting to say it does. It doesn't matter. It happened under his. It happened under his watch.
It did, and there's no denying that, and I don't deny that point. However, when you're talking about legalese, when you're talking about stuff that's going to have to go in front of a judge at some point because you're going to get sued over this, you probably want to have something that's going to directly implicate the person that you're suspending, the person that is involved in this situation. So I think he's getting railroaded from that standpoint. From the standpoint of they don't have anything to hang Jim Harbaugh on. They're just blaming him. And you're right. Like, it is not a leap to conclusion to think that Jim Harbaugh knew what was going on. Duh. Most of the times when this kind of stuff goes on, teams are smart enough to build in plausible deniability for the head coach. Mm-hmm. That's what Michigan did. That's what Connor Stallions did in this situation. But at the same time, we know that Jim Harbaugh very likely knew what was going on. Like, Connor Stallions wasn't standing very far away from him. That said, you're treading on dangerous territory when you are suspending someone without the evidence to suggest that you were able to.
I don't doubt that either.
So when I say they're railroading him, that's what I mean.
Saying Michigan, that's fair. And I shouldn't say that Michigan isn't getting a raw deal, because they very well might be right now, especially it feels like if it's a 3-game suspension, there's 3 games left of the regular season. It's trying to buy the NCAA, or not the NCAA, the Big Ten 3 more weeks to investigate while having Jim Harbaugh off the field. And maybe the Big Ten is rushing to this, but there does seem like there's a mountain of evidence at least implicating Connor Stallions, who was a member of the staff. And whether or not Jim Harbaugh, obviously he knew something. Like, I'm sure he has plausible deniability, but there's no way he didn't know something was going on. And I know this goes on everywhere, but maybe not to this extent. Like the comparison of all the other coaches are doing 80 on the freeway and Harbaugh's doing 120, it makes a lot of sense to me. or Michigan, but like if it happens under your roof, you are responsible. And that's every single coach on Saturdays when they're and I know it's a different scenario, but like when they lose a game, they'll say it starts and ends with me. This is my program. This is everything, falls on my plate. And you can't have it both ways. If it
And
happened underneath your nose and you let it happen or you were ignorant to it, you're still responsible for it.
let me also say this, like, maybe this is where I should have started. I don't care about this. I don't care that Michigan was stealing signs. I don't care that Connor Stallions perpetuated one of the dumbest conspiracies in college football. It's hilarious that this happened at all. Because Michigan's crime in this, Matt, isn't that they stole signs. It's that they went about it in the least efficient way possible. Like, I
seemed like they went about it in an arrogant way too. Like, we're not going to get caught, and if we get caught, no one's going to do anything. And I'm like,
there's also that. Yeah. But like, this isn't 1972 where there's 3 games on TV every week, and the only game film you're getting is like slow motion 8mm. This also isn't 1993, the last time you were able to scout in person, when there's like 12 games on TV, but it's still like that grainy, shitty SD quality that we grew up with. We have every game, at least for Michigan, every team that you're playing is going to be on national television in high definition, some of them in 4K, with 30 different cameras trained on every single angle of the stadium. You can steal signs and pick up signals much easier from TV than you can scouting in person. So it was just exceptionally stupid to do this to begin with. It's hilarious. And I don't understand the Michigan people who are like, why is everyone targeting us? It's like the arrogance of it is kind of funny to me, because it's like, oh, well, we're the best team in the Big Ten. Well, let's back up for a second. Like, you are, but let's put this into a grander context. 2 years ago, you went to the playoff. Yeah, you got your ass kicked by Georgia pretty severely,
candidly,
in that game. Last year, you very clearly did not take TCU seriously. You lost to TCU, and then TCU lost 65-7 in the national championship game. So there's still a long way to go for Michigan to be national championship caliber. But Jim Harbaugh was losing 3 or 4 games a year, goes 2-4 in the weird COVID season, and then suddenly Michigan starts winning the Big Ten. They start beating Ohio State, and they're surprised that people were like, huh? How did this happen? Why did this happen? There wasn't a noticeable uptick in recruiting. They're not really a transfer portal school. So like, something must be up. And the surprise that maybe Ohio State was behind it is stupid too, because of course Ohio State's probably behind this. Why wouldn't they be? Like, if, like, I was thinking about it the other day. It's like if Florida the next 2 years suddenly becomes the best team in the SEC, you don't think Georgia's not going to start investigating to be like, what is going on here?
It's literally like if next year Florida beats Georgia 42-27 and absolutely bullies them, and the 2 years after that kind of does the same thing, like Georgia would be like, that's kind of weird.
So like, I don't know, man. I think the story's funny. I still think it's funny. I think I'm just begging, if we're gonna have to get into all the lore, like the lawyering stage of this is where we're headed, and
that's where it's getting boring,
not fun. So I just need more Connor Stallions information. Like, God,
what was the brief thing about him and Blake Corum having an LLC together that he may or may not have committed fraud with?
Yeah, so apparently he, a guy named Connor O'Day, who I believe I read was one of the other people who he was using to go scout, and Blake Corum's names are on a business license in the state of Wyoming, because apparently there's tax things that make filing in Wyoming more advantageous. And Blake Corum said that he has no idea what this is and that he would never put his name on this, even though like right before that he put something on Instagram that said I should be my own LLC, which means Connor Stallions might have just used his name to try to build a business. But nevertheless, if he used Blake Corum's name without his permission, illegal. That is fraud in the state of Wyoming, which is punishable by a couple years in jail. Also, I just love bumbling sign stealing operative / vacuum repair entrepreneur Connor Stallions, because that story was tremendous about how he got into a fight with the homeowners association. Like, the Connor Stallions portion of this story was awesome and is hilarious. And the rest of it is getting to the point now where I'm just like, man, I don't like this. I don't want to listen to this anymore. I don't want to listen to Michigan fans act like there's some grand conspiracy against them.
That's my favorite part of all this is the Michigan, and now it's just on Twitter, but like the Michigan fans think there's some grand conspiracy when really it was just them being really, really arrogant and really, really sloppy about going about this. And every Michigan, now again, just on Twitter, but every Michigan person's defense is, well, everyone else does it too. Look what they did. It's like, just because they did something wrong, just because your older brother knocked the Diet Coke off the counter doesn't mean you didn't break the TV. Like, it's two different things here, pal. You still did something wrong.
Yeah, man. And like the thing, dude, like everyone's okay with it to a point. Everyone gives an inch. You took a mile. Deal with it. And if there's the only fan base that I can think of that might be worse at handling the fact that they're at the center of a big scandal like this, a big cheating scandal, than Michigan fans is Notre Dame fans. So moving on to the game, Michigan at.
When did we get called out for cheating?
I said would handle it worse.
No, we'd be fine with it.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think part of the reason why Notre Dame and Michigan is such a great rivalry is that there's kind of a lot of similarities there in the fan bases and how the attitudes of those fan bases. Like, if we're being honest,
I've seen from and now a few, it's again just Twitter, but I've seen from several opposing fan bases that, like, when Notre Dame is in town, that people seem to like Notre Dame fans, that they seem to be fairly easy to get along with people. But that's just being me.
In fairness, I know a lot of Michigan fans, and they're awesome. There's one who's been getting on my nerves lately. I'm not going to name names. I'll tell you off air. But most of the Michigan fans I know are pretty cool. Anyway, there is a game going on tomorrow, Matt. It is a very, 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 very big game. A game I am very, very excited to watch.
Now let's talk football.
And I'm not sure how much of this I'm going to be able to watch because, again, my weekend calendar gets loaded with family stuff. Awesome. Michigan, they are on the road at Penn State. Do you have the odds screen open? I don't have the odds open right now.
I think it's 5.5.
I'm going to go. I'm just great TV right now as Michigan heads to Happy Valley to take on Penn State.
Got it. It's Michigan. Michigan is -4 now. Four on Caesars.
4 on Caesars.
And 44.5 is your total on ESPN Bet.
ESPN Bet. We love it. All right. So I love launched. I love nerd stats, Matt. And Michigan ranks in the top 10 in all of the nerd stats I like. So EPA per play, success rate, EPA per pass, EPA per rush, on offense and defense, except in success rate. And hold on, let me back up for a second. Screw this up. All right. I love the nerd stats. Okay. So Michigan is 6th in overall EPA per play on offense, 1st on defense, 5th in overall success rate on offense, 2nd in defense. On quality drives and points per quality drive, they're 3rd on offense, 5th on in points per quality per drive. And then on defense, Matt, they allow the fewest quality points per drive and the fewest quality drives in the country. The only thing that this team doesn't do like amazingly well is run the football, where they're 18th in EPA per rush and 21st in success rate. Like, they're
it's kind of wild because that's what they did better than anybody last year.
It is, and I think it's probably because they've opened up the offense probably a little bit more because their quarterback is so good. JJ McCarthy has been so good. This team does not do much wrong at all. They've done hardly anything wrong. Here's the thing, though. In all of those nerd stats I just mentioned, Penn State's defense ranks in the top 10 in all of them except for points per quality possession, where they rank 23rd. So not bad at all, just not elite top 10. Mm-hmm. The defense wasn't why Penn State lost the Ohio State game. They just didn't have anyone who could match up with Marvin Harrison Jr. JJ McCarthy, I think, is a good bit better than Kyle McCord. I don't think there's any doubt there. They don't have a Marvin Harrison Jr., though, which isn't to say that their pass catchers aren't good. They are very good. Roman Wilson has 38 targets this season, 35 catches, 10 of which have gone for touchdowns, which is insane. It'll be interesting to see how Penn State's corners can match up with a great receiving room that doesn't have the otherworldly talent like Marvin Harrison Jr. But yeah, I mean, this Michigan team has shown absolutely no flaws. The metrics are great. The eye test has been great. The schedule, though, just hasn't been great. And I don't think Penn State's going to score in this game. I just do not think that the Penn State offense is good enough to make anything happen against Michigan. But I'm very, very curious to see what Michigan's offense has against a Penn State defense that is very good, because this Michigan offense has been outstanding.
I do think Penn State's run game is good enough to do things against Michigan. The problem is their pass game hasn't showed anything, so Michigan will load the box and dare Penn State to throw, and I'm not certain they can do that. I mean, I still think I'm not sure Drew Aller was the 5-star prospect a lot of people were hoping for. I still think there's more talent left in there, because I think that the Ohio State game, especially, that James Franklin put some handcuffs on him. I just hope that in this one, especially at home with your crowd in front of you, that the handcuffs are off. Because the only way Penn State is beating Michigan is by taking the handcuffs off Drew Aller and Drew Aller playing his ass off, because they're going to be, if he can do that, then they're going to be able to run the football. They got two really good running backs in Singleton and Allen. The offensive line is fine. They have a left tackle that's going to be a top 5 pick. Defense is really good. What's holding them back is Drew Aller and James Franklin holding back Drew Aller. And I'm sure is good reason why, because you hold back your quarterback if he's not looking all that great. And if he was looking like a Heisman winner, I'm sure James Franklin would be letting him throw. But I think part of that goes back to the criticism on James Franklin a lot, is that he's a little bit of a vanilla and kind of, I'll call it conservative. I won't say the word scared head coach in big games. Say he gets conservative. They need to take the handcuffs off Drew Aller, because losing this game, I would say losing this game 13-10 or 16-10, and having your offense look the way it did against Ohio State would be even worse than, like, I'd rather see them lose 42-27 because Drew Aller went out and threw a bunch and maybe made some mistakes, but like they at least gave him a chance. If you just go out and lose 16-10, I just kind of feel like you're not really giving your guys a chance.
Yeah, this is a referendum game on James Franklin. Well, you need to be able to beat Ohio State at home with more frequency than he has. It's somewhat understandable, because at the end of the day, Ohio State's recruiting is just a higher level than everyone else's.
Yeah, he's recruited better than Michigan.
Thank you. I'm getting there. I'm getting
there. Sorry.
No. Looking at the 24/7 Sports talent composite over the past 4 years, Ohio State has been 140 points higher than Penn State. It's a pretty decent-sized gap. The bad thing, though, they're actually about half a point better than Michigan in overall talent the past 4 years. Practically identical. He won 3 of 4 against Michigan from 2017 to 2020, but they've lost 2 in a row, and it feels like there's a pretty wide gap between where the programs have gone since Penn State's last win. You can make all the jokes you want about sign stealing, but I don't think sign stealing was responsible for a 41-17 game last year. Penn State was supposed to be the team that could contend in the Big Ten this year. The offense was just horrendous against Ohio State, and now they're playing a team that's likely to have a big-time chip on their shoulder. Michigan's overall returning production was higher than Penn State, and that clearly matters at the quarterback position in particular, but player for player, this Michigan roster is not more talented than Penn State's, so anything that's going to happen in this game is going to come down to how well that coaching staff gets them ready to play this game, how aggressive James Franklin is, to your point, like how much do they let Drew Aller go out, or Drew Aller, I kept saying Aller, and I just think it's Aller, how much Drew Aller just goes out and makes plays. I still don't think they have the guy at wide receiver. I talked about it after the Ohio State game. I just don't think they've got the dude that we usually see. They're still last in the country in offensive explosiveness, so even though they move the ball pretty well on offense, they just don't generate explosive plays. Feels like they're going to have to do that a little bit in this game. They're going to have to hit at least 1 or 2, like, to keep Michigan off balance. I'll put it out there now. Like, I guess the market's reacting to the Harbaugh thing all week. Opened at 7. The number has come down. I'm betting Michigan at any number under 7. Like, I don't care. I think
we got this comment: if Harbaugh can't be on the sidelines, I think we've gotten our break on.
Yeah,
I think the fact that it's down to 4 now. I think it got down. It was 5.5, I believe, yesterday. Now it's down to 4 with the rumors of the 3-game suspension looming. So I would guess that is our break. The break is now that it's down to 4.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, maybe it comes down even more, but I think at a certain point it kind of got priced in when there were rumors, because there have been rumors going around all week that something was going to happen. That there was going to be some form of discipline, and I think this was going to happen. I don't know how much it's going to, if under the circumstance that he can't coach, which I still think they will find the judge to give him an injunction whenever the suspension comes down. I'm not sure how much it's going to matter. Like, I don't think that there's going to be a big change in what the game plan, how they plan to attack. Maybe just some coaching decision stuff.
Yeah.
But, like, there's a reason also why Harbaugh let 3 different coaches coach while he was suspended earlier this year. Like, he wanted to get those guys some reps, and maybe maybe there should have been some foresight and just to say, let's pick one. But I think between that staff, they've probably got a pretty good sense of what they need to do on some of the down-to-down decision-making, big time, in those, whether it's a 4th down, whether, what you have to do in those key decisions that might decide a game. Maybe that's going to matter, but I don't think from a standpoint of just from a big picture standpoint, I don't think it changes a ton. One thing
they've certainly prepared for this, and probably started preparing for it like a couple weeks ago when this stuff started happening, or news started coming down, stories kept getting worse, and especially this week when they knew it was probably coming.
By the way, one thing I want to bring up here real quick before we move on to the Georgia Ole Miss game is this. regardless of how you feel about this situation, I will say I actually do feel really bad for the Michigan players because this is another example of adults doing stupid shit and the kids getting punished for it. Because look, they're the ones who benefited on the field. Like certainly they probably helped them in some games, even though they said, "Oh, look at how much we're winning by." It didn't really help us. Like, sure, it helped them, but like there's not a college football player in the world who's going to stand up and be like, this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this." Like the
Those kids,
NCAA, the
honestly,
conference.
the kids probably didn't even know.
I mean, the kids. I'm sure someone was wise enough. I'm sure someone was
ma-
wise enough to be like, "Why do we have their
ma-
signals?" Now they probably didn't know it was a conspiracy. To
but
this point, right?
that's also the thing. Is like it's not why do they have their signals? Like everybody's mentioned that there's sign stealing that goes on, and that's
Right.
probably something that is somebody's job to watch the film and try and get that. So like if you're a kid playing for Michigan, it's not inconceivable that your coaches have signs without them being taken illegally.
Right. That's fair. They probably didn't know the level to which this conspiracy went. And so they're going about their business. And now the Big Ten is putting their foot down, allegedly, like reportedly putting their foot down and saying, you know what? We're going to suspend the coach. And that just screws the kids over because the upheaval, the uncertainty of what's going to look like the next 24 hours as they prepare for this game, what's going to happen going forward for them. Now they're very good. And like I said, I don't think it's going to matter a ton, but it's still putting the kids at a disadvantage, the kids who did nothing wrong. And it drives me up the wall that the NCAA and the conferences hold players to the same or higher standards than they hold the coaches. You want to suspend Jim Harbaugh, fine, whatever, I get it. But that is a decision that directly impacts the players who had nothing to do with this. And that's where I take offense. And that's where I take issue with a suspension. I talked about how I didn't care if they suspend Harbaugh himself. Like, I don't care how it affects Harbaugh at all. Like, I just genuinely do not care. But the fact that they're doing this and the fact that they would do this the day before the game is such an unfair thing to do.
It's one thing if you do it Monday or Tuesday. It's one thing if you do it Monday or Tuesday.
And that's where, like, if they, whatever, like, I don't care about the legality of it. Like, they violated the rule. Like, I understand all that, but I don't like the fact that this is going to be something that is going to directly affect those players one way or another. That's not fair. And I think that's where the Big Ten is really missing the plot here. Sorry to come back to that. I forgot to make that point earlier, and I wanted to make sure that I made that point. We move on. Ole Miss at Georgia is just another massive game in the SEC. I forgot to write down all of these spreads, so I'm going to see if I can go find that one real quick. Where
popping open DraftKings right now?
I've just got to scroll away. There we go. Georgia, 10.5 point favorite total, 58.5. Here are areas in which Ole Miss matches up well with Georgia from a number standpoint. They are 12th in EPA per rush. They're 41st in rushing success rate. That number is pretty good considering they're 105th in rush rate over expected, which is a metric that tells you how much a team runs the ball more than the average team in any situation. So TLDR, they just want to run the damn ball, and they run it pretty well. They're also 10th in early down EPA, meaning they're good at not putting themselves in bad spots on third down. Georgia, 56th in early down EPA defense. So Ole Miss has to stay ahead of the chains because they're really bad in third and fourth down success rate, whereas Georgia really excels in that area. Ole Miss is also 16th in points per quality possession, something that Georgia struggles in stopping. So they have to establish the run. They have to stay out of third and long, and they have to finish drives. The blueprint is there. Can they execute it? I've talked about it a lot on this show. I am not sold on Lane Kiffin. I have never been sold on Lane Kiffin in situations like this. This is a game where things are going to have to go pretty perfectly for the Ole Miss offense because we didn't even talk about their defense. Their defense just is not very good. And it seems like Brock Bowers really is an alien. Looks like he is on track to play tomorrow from the last I saw.
He is?
Brock Bowers, yeah.
What the hell? He's been out 2 weeks.
Yeah, it seems like Brock Bowers is tracking to play. Even if he doesn't, I don't think Ole Miss's defense is going to really be able to put up much resistance. So the offense is going to have to hang around. I mentioned it. The blueprint is there. There are some things they do well that Georgia does not do well on defense. But, man, this is it. Like, Lane Kiffin, another opportunity to show if you're someone that we should take seriously, and just don't think it's going to be the case.
Yeah, like, we talked, it was Tuesday when we did the first show that, like, Ole Miss's running game is a bad matchup for Georgia, and they should be able to run the football, and that might be a problem. But, like, if Ole Miss goes down early or Georgia gets ahead by 2 touchdowns because of a turnover and their defense isn't playing well, that kind of neutralizes the running game for Ole Miss by default because Ole Miss is not just going to be able to establish the run and be a running team. If they let this get into a track meet, I know Jackson Dart has been fine this year, but like I don't trust him in a track meet at Georgia in that situation. So Ole Miss is going to have to probably get the ball first, score on their first drive, establish the run, and just kind of try and eat clock and be that, like, time of possession monster. Because if this thing turns into a track meet, Georgia's going to run away with it.
Yeah, I'm very curious though on the other side of this game just to see. We talk about, oh well, Georgia's Georgia, they're gonna figure it out, they're gonna be fine. And they play the Florida game, and like Florida ran the ball well on them, made some dumb mistakes. That thing snowballed on Florida really, really quickly. Georgia struggled in the Auburn game. Weird things happen at Auburn, but every week it feels like we're like, well, this is the week that Georgia's going to do it. This is the week that Georgia's going to do it. They struggled against Missouri last week, and at a certain point where just our expectation is, okay, they really struggled to stop the run. Kirby Smart was pissed. I'd expect that the Georgia defense is going to step up and play well this week, but there just feels like I talked about it the other day. There doesn't seem like there's quite that same edge, which is understandable. When you've had the level of success that Georgia has had, and you turn over the roster as much, you start getting that whole thing where it's like standing on the shoulders of giants and calling yourself tall, which isn't to say they don't have really good play. Like the talent level is unbelievable there. Like Alabama, in terms of just raw talent, Alabama's the only team that compares to Georgia, but it just feels like that dominance that we've come to find from Georgia just hasn't quite been there. And maybe
we've seen it a couple times this year.
A little bit here and there, like the Kentucky game.
The Kentucky game, they flexed their muscles. The Florida game, I know Florida. I know Florida's Florida. Like, I don't take Florida super seriously, but like they came out, started fast, got a touchdown, were really feeling themselves, and then Georgia just kind of squashed them with their foot. I agree. The Missouri game did not go quite the way I thought it would. And I agree that this is a chance for Georgia to probably silence some doubts, to be Georgia again. But like, it's not like they played bad against Missouri. It wasn't like I'm with you in a sense that yes, we haven't really seen against a good team, that like a really good team, that dominant Georgia effort. But like, part of me thinks Missouri just played a really good football game too.
And that's fair. That I don't have it taking any issue with that as well. There's one big game in the ACC this week, although, man, the ACC almost got thrown into a little bit of chaos last night with Virginia hanging around, having the lead going into the fourth quarter, I think, or at least tied going into the fourth quarter with Louisville. But Louisville stays on track for an appearance in the ACC title game where they will where I think Florida State's already clinched their spot, I believe. If they haven't, because of course they have the Florida game at the end of the season, so they only have 2 more conference games. But the one they play,
they might have to win. If they win this week, they're for sure in.
This week they play the Miami Hurricanes. Florida State, a 13.5-point home favorite. The total is 50.5. Needless to say, Matt, this is a big game for Mario Cristobal. We've always known he's been super sus as an in-game coach. So when Miami does dumb stuff on the field and loses, that's par for the course. But he's supposed to be a culture and recruiting guy. He's a Miami alum. He played in the heyday of this rivalry. This is the kind of game where his positives of a coach have to show up. Last year, Tyler Van Dyke got re-injured early, and you lost 45-3. Losing 45-3 to Florida State is the kind of thing that gets Miami coaches fired. Now, granted, that was his first year, so he's not going to get fired. Duh. But you cannot get blown out by FSU in your first 2 years, particularly based on how everything else has gone. They have to show up here. And their ability to compete in this game comes down to attention to detail things that have been a problem. They're 95th in the country in red zone touchdown percentage. They're 103rd in penalties. Florida State's actually slightly worse, but the game is in Tallahassee. And they're 121st in turnovers lost. Florida State has lost just 5 turnovers this year. Can Miami do the little things right to hang around in this game? If so, they're live to hang around. The defense has been consistently good this year, and we know there's potential with Tyler Van Dam. But he's thrown 10 picks over the past 4 games, which was 3 losses and an overtime win against Virginia. So I have a sneaking suspicion, because this is college football, we're going to get the best from Miami. But at the same time, I feel like I might be stupid when Florida State wins this game by like 30.
Yeah, I think Miami's kind of dead. Like, they lost 20-6 to NC State. After beating Clemson in overtime, to bounce back, like that seemed like a moment like, all right, like our season's kind of turning back around here. I know they won the next week, but they went to overtime with Virginia, and then they lose 20-6 to NC State. Like, I don't know. I think Florida State's cruising. Florida State's at home too. Not that it matters, because Miami doesn't have much of a home field advantage anyways, but this also feels like another reason for Mike Norvell to get Florida State up for a game in some of these down games like Pitt, they were a little bit sleepy. Boston College, they were sleepy. Wake Forest, at times they were sleepy, even though they pulled away. This feels like a reason for Mike Norvell to get his guys kind of up for another big game. So I can't touch the Miami side. I might not bet Florida State, but I can't touch Miami here.
Fair enough. We'll see if I share that same opinion later on in the show. In the Pac-12 this week, Matt, we have two kind of fun games. We actually have several kind of fun games, but we have two that
every game in the Pac-12 is kind of fun, Dan.
Fair enough. Unless they involve Stanford and Cal, in which case, or Arizona State. Arizona State's kind of lately. Anyway, Utah, they hit the road to Seattle. We have Utah, UW, and then we have USC at Oregon. I want to find out if I'm taking crazy pills right now. Who, in your estimation, is more likely to cover? Washington, now an 8.5-point favorite, or Oregon, a 14.5-point favorite?
Washington.
Okay.
Because I don't. I still think Oregon can cover. I think you had a tweet yesterday about Lincoln Riley only not
that'll come
covering
up later.
14 or whatever.
That'll come up
later. We'll let you kind of bring that one up.
Yeah.
I think both can cover, but I think if I had to bet on one, I would bet on Washington because I think there's a pretty good chance that offense is starting to cook again. And if that offense gets going, I don't think with Bryson Barnes is going to be able to kind of keep Utah's offense in a track meet with Washington. Nothing against him, but I like Utah. I think Kyle Whittingham's done a fantastic job this year, as he always does. But we've said it, I feel like weekly on this podcast, especially with no Cam Rising, they just don't have the dudes this year. And the fact that they don't have the dudes this year, and they're still 8-2 or whatever the hell they are, 7-2, that's a testament to how good of a coaching job he's doing. But I think Washington's just got the dudes offensively. They're back at home. This isn't in Salt Lake City, so I would lean towards a Washington spot there, just because I think just over a touchdown is very doable. That said, if you told me Oregon came out and punched USC in the mouth and Trojans kind of folded on the road in a hostile environment, I would not be shocked at all.
Yeah, so my notes are kind of similar to what you said about Utah. We're pretty pro Utah and pro Kyle Whittingham around here. This team just doesn't have the firepower to contend with the top two teams in this league right now. Oregon's run game is better. Yeah, Oregon's run game is better than Washington's, but we probably underrate Washington's ability to run the ball based on our expectation. The pass offense certainly opens things up for sure for their run game, but Dylan Johnson, who transferred, I believe, from Mississippi State, has become a really solid option for them. USC's defense is basura, and Johnson treated them as such. 256 yards, I think 190 before contact, 4 touchdowns. He won't do that against Utah, obviously, but Oregon ran for 5 yards a pop against them. If Johnson can keep defenses honest, at least, that makes Washington a lot more lethal. In the other game, maybe because USC's defense is so basura, Oregon will load up on explosive plays against them. But I mentioned it before the Utah game. That's just not what Oregon does on offense. They had 2 explosive plays against Utah and just ground them into dust. Remember, they stab you 1,000 times and watch you bleed to death slowly. Maybe this is the breaking point, the ejecto seat-o point for USC, and maybe it's this week. But Oregon's defense is 44th in quality possessions allowed, and they're good but not great against the run. Those are the only real weaknesses they've shown. USC is the best team in the country at finishing drives. If USC cares, I think they hang around. So we'll transition this to the bets portion of
it's a big if.
Because, well, trust me, I understand that they might throw in the towel on this season. I totally understand that. But I took the points with USC. There was a 15.5 at BetMGM, I think it was. But I would play it at anything 14.5 or better. So if you can get a 14.5, a 15, or 15.5, I'd play it. Lincoln Riley has lost 3 games as a head coach by more than 14 points. The 2019 Peach Bowl, the 2022 Pac-12 title game, and the Notre Dame game this year. So unless Joe Burrow replaces Bo Nix, Caleb Williams destroys his hamstring again, or USC turns the ball over 5 times, 4 of them inside their own 30, I think as long as they care, I think they're going to be able to score enough to cover. I don't think they're going to win. I think Oregon's going to win. I think Oregon's going to name their score. But unless this is just the point where USC just says, fuck it, we're done, I think they're going to cover. I think USC's going to cover. It's one of those, I can't lay off the 14.5 with Miami. Again, if it's north of 14, I'll take Miami and the 14.5 there. I think they're going to show up. They kind of have his Bud Elliott, who does Cover 3, works for CBS. He's a Florida State guy. Like, that's how he got into doing all this content. It was covering Florida State first. He has this recurring bit about how Miami always looks terrible, plays themselves out of contention in the ACC, and then shows up against Florida State. It's a rivalry game. This is, again, I know my two big underdogs I'm playing this week are teams who might just punt on their season this week, but I still think that we're going to see enough from those two teams.
And if you really like SC that much too, they're up to 15.5 on DraftKings now.
They are
I'm giving you some value there if you're in.
Yeah,
go grab the extra point.
Awesome. I feel like the market is overreacting pretty strongly to, you said USC, right?
USC is plus 15.5.
The market is reacting very weird to Oregon. Like, yes, Oregon right now looks like they might be playing the best football in the country. They might be. But I don't know that unless USC quits, I think we're vastly underestimating what USC can do. And the fact that they're 6.5, we talked about it a little bit on Tuesday, the fact that they're 6.5 point favorites in a hypothetical Pac-12 title game rematch with Washington is crazy.
That doesn't make sense to me.
That is crazy. So I think we're overestimating this Oregon team a good bit. Nevertheless, they're going to win, and maybe they do. They could very well blow them out. I understand that. So USC plus 15.5, Miami plus 14.5, Michigan, any number south of a touchdown. I don't care about the Harbaugh stuff. I just don't think we're going to see Penn State win this game. Keep it relatively close there. And then I have two player props for you, Matt. Going with Noah Fafita over 281.5 passing yards against Colorado. Fafita has cleared this number in 3 of his last 4 starts, and the only one he didn't, he threw for 275 yards against an Oregon State defense. That is better than Colorado. I got to sneeze. Sorry. Colorado is 116th in pass defense success rate. Matt, I feel a premonition. Noah is going to make the Colorado defense fall because he's living Fafita Loca. And then the other one, because I'm just going to move on from that. I promise this is not me just being me, Matt. I really, 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 really promise you this. Quinn Ewers, his passing yards total is 265.5. I'm playing the under there. Malik Murphy had 6. So back up for a second. Quinn Ewers is starting against TCU tomorrow. Malik Murphy,
good for him.
Yeah, Malik Murphy has 6 turnover-worthy plays and 73 dropbacks. The 7.9% turnover-worthy play rate is 6th worst among FBS quarterbacks with at least 70 dropbacks. So basically, Malik Murphy tries to throw the ball to the defense a lot. So I don't think Quinn Ewers is fully healthy yet, but I think he's healthy enough to play. Clearly, and Sark wants a quarterback who isn't so turnover-prone on the road against TCU, a team who is not very good this year. But look, this is going to be the last time these two teams play for a long time. Like, they may never realistically ever play a regular season game again. The only time Texas and TCU might play again is in a bowl game down the road somewhere. Texas has no interest in playing TCU. They have no interest in scheduling them. Like, they only played them one time or twice, 1 or 2 times after the Southwest Conference blew up. They just don't want to play them. So this is going to be the last one. And again, beating Texas can make the season for a lot of these teams. So I think Sark's going a little conservative with his quarterback play, hoping, hey, we can run the ball. We can throw the intermediate, shorter stuff and move the chain, score some points, win the game. So I don't think we're going to see Quinn Ewers slinging the ball all over the field tomorrow. So under 265.5 there. What are you betting?
Not a lot on the slate this week. I might have some more game time stuff or some live betting, but I just don't love a lot on the board. I am going to lay 11 with Alabama on the road at Kentucky. I think they're kind of starting to cruise, and I think Kentucky's a little bit dead. Laying 3.5 at home with Kansas against Texas Tech. I love the way Kansas is playing right now. I'm going to lay a lot of favorites, which scares me. Laying the 10 with Arizona at Colorado. It's a afternoon game in Colorado. Like, it's not even a night game. The atmosphere isn't there, and Colorado just seems to be circling the drain at this point. Arizona's just playing under the radar, unbelievable football right now. Oklahoma State minus 2.5 against at UCF. I actually wanted to look for UCF as a trap line there, thinking it might be 4.5, 5, in which I would have grabbed UCF. But I think this is a game Oklahoma State, still coming down from that high, maybe plays their food for a little bit, but eventually wins like 24-21, 27-24, with a field goal there. Obviously Rutgers and Iowa under 28. Are you crazy? I'm going to take Missouri getting 2 at home against Tennessee. There was one more on the board I thought I liked. Oregon State, Stanford under 54.5.
Interesting. You're not a big under player other than Iowa games.
No. Well, every Iowa under. It's down to 28 now. So when Northwestern Iowa came out, it was 29.5. and got bet up to 31 and a half, depending where you're looking. Iowa Rutgers came out at 28 and a half and now is down to 28. I might bet it at 20.
I'm still waiting for the one. There's always one Iowa game every year, I feel like, where they score like 30 something points.
Oh, I bet the under last year. Last year was Iowa Northwestern, and I couldn't bet it because I was here, but I texted Andy and was like, hey, here's money, put this on the under in this game for me. And it was, Northwestern couldn't stop turning the ball over, and then they got an Iowa turnover inside the 10, so they scored and got like 9 points, and Iowa won like 33-9. It was bullshit.
Yeah, it's like Cooper DeJean is going to get like 3 interceptions and return 2 of them for a touchdown, and
he's good.
He's very good. Like, again, like, shout out. We've talked about how Lincoln Riley has wasted Caleb Williams' career and how Brian Kelly has wasted an all-time great season from Jaden Daniels. On the other side of things, like, Cooper DeJean probably deserves to be playing in more high-profile situations than playing for an Iowa team that can't score more than like 10 points per game. Like, that guy's awesome. He's a great player.
Waiting for Kirk to get him involved on offense.
There you go. Like,
no, you can't do that though, because then he'd be too tired for defense, and we can't sacrifice defense for offense or special teams.
It's true. There's that. Is there anything else? Anything else we want to add? I'm trying to think if there's any other.
Think so.
I'm just trying to think in my head of what I'm going to cut into a YouTube short for this because I fucked up the Michigan section of my notes. Yeah. All right. We will wrap this up. Also, my dog. Oh my God, my dog is being such a pain in the ass this morning, dude.
That's what puppies do. They have their days.
He's a puppy, and he just did not want to go take his morning nap. But I think he's napping now. I'm going to go check on him in a second. He's so cute.
I haven't heard any barking, so he's probably fine.
Yeah, he's not a big, knock on wood, he's not really a big barker. The only thing I'll say about my puppy that is really, really annoying is how much he bites. And he's a puppy, and puppies bite.
My parents just got a golden lab, and great dog, but it's now like, it's got to be 6 months-ish old. I think they probably had it since like summer, maybe July. So like it's getting over the nipping, but like that was an issue.
Yeah, he
again, not like strong bites, but like hey, we can't do that.
He knock on wood, he's
training your dog.
He's only 2Z'd in the apartment once, which was my fault. I would take the blame for that one. He's getting better about the accidents in the apartment. He's a puppy. It's going to happen, but he's getting better about that. He's very chill most of the time. He just gets super hyper and starts biting. And hey, look, he's a puppy. He's so cute. I just want him to sit nice. I have a chair over here. I want him just to like come sit nicely and just be part of the show. He just doesn't like to sit in the office and sit still. That's really what I want, Matt. I just want Gus to be our co-pilot. If Phil can't be here, I want Gus to come and we do Gus Cam.
He'll get Gus there.
Yeah, I mean, he'll get there. We'll get there eventually. Hopefully by the end of the season, we can have 1 week where Gus can just sit in my lap or just sit like right here and he can just eat my microphone. Dude, how cute would that be? I'm just saying. So my life is all college football and puppies right now, which, hey,
a lot of worse things in the world.
Living # blessed life. All right. Well, we are going to wrap it there. We will be back next week to recap Michigan's first game of the season in November. Wow. It took them a while. I wonder why it took them so long to start their season. Why did they not start their season before November? Nobody will ever know. So we'll find out. We'll talk. We'll probably digest everything that's going to be happening with this Harbaugh situation, all that, Georgia, Ole Miss, and a bunch of other things. We will recap the week on probably Tuesday for Matt, for Florida Phil, who is on daddy duty today. So salute to you, sir. I'm Dan. We will be back next week. Good luck with your bets. We hope you all have a winning week.